Here's the message that I want you to realize, is that there will be adversity in life. There will be adversity in life. There's no way to get around it. There will be adversity in life. Did you notice that Jesus was in the boat with them and they still experienced a storm? I don't know why we make the assumption that if Jesus is with us, we're not going to have a storm, as though he's some kind of a lucky charm. That people, they get in a storm and people start reaching for their cross if they got one on. As though it's some type of good luck charm. They feel a storm coming, they want to use it, like some kind of a charm. Jesus can be with you and you can still have a storm. He's already in the boat with you when the storm comes. So there's no reason to assume that he's not with you. But there will be adversity in life. You know why? Storms touch every life. Storms touch every life. Every life. You live long enough, everybody's going to go through a storm. 100% of those who are set for unique promotions have to endure seasons of contradiction. They have to deal with storms. Storms touch every life. They touch every life. Let me just say it this way, that if you're on your way, expect something to be in your way. If you're on your way, expect something to be in your way. Because there will be obstacles. There's going to be challenge in every situation that you deal with in life. And you really don't want to live a life where there are no storms. Your life would be boring. The storm carries something for you. There are treasures in the storm. And listen, this is the thing that you have to realize, that if God stops your storms, he also stunts your growth. If he stops your storm, he stunts your growth. So you don't want life to never have any storms. If you go to a movie, if there's no storm, if there's no conflict, if there's no troublemaker, if there's no adversary, if there is no antagonist, the movie is boring. The book is boring. There has to be a trouble. I don't care how small. You can have a hot dog stand, and you're like, you don't remember all of the sweet customers that abide by the rule. You remember the drunk who comes in there, and you have to get out of here, man. You have to start threatening some people. I had to go ahead and pull my piece out on because somebody. And that's the one that you're going to remember. That's the one that you're going to remember. So everybody is going to have storms that they deal with, but just remember that if God stops your storm, he stunts your growth. And this is another wonderful benefit of the treasure that's in the storm, is that adversity introduces us to ourselves. Adversity introduces us to ourselves. Now, why do I say that? Because there are some things that are in you that you'll never know what's in you until you are presented with a storm. Adversity can also help us to become more spiritual, because people tend to think of God more during a storm. I don't know why. When people get in a storm, they start thinking about God. When we were growing up, and it would be raining and thundering and lightning, I mean particularly thunder and lightning, I don't know whether our parents just used to psych us out just to make us sit down and be quiet. I think that parents just wanted some peace, but they, shh, shh, God is doing his work, shh. They just made you get quiet. You unplugged things and turned everything off. Turned the lights off, sat in the dark, shh. It was just scary, just scary, but adversity has a way of introducing us to ourselves. People they have a tendency to become a little more spiritual in a storm. When you weren't thinking about God, but all of a sudden you go through a storm, you start thinking about God. You start thinking about God. They didn't think about Jesus being on the ship until the storm came. They said, hey, where's Jesus? He was fine. He was down in the ship sleep. He was asleep before the storm. Nobody was concerned about him then. But the minute a storm came, hey, where's Jesus? Storms have an ability to make you more spiritual. And listen, this is what I want you to understand very clearly. Becoming more spiritual does not mean that you are becoming less human. Your humanity will remain intact. We are human beings, not human doings. We are human beings. And as you become more spiritual, it does not mean that you become less human. You're still human. And there are proclivities of your humanity that no storm will ever take away. So a storm will come and it will expose your humanity. It'll draw us closer to God, but then, you know, Jesus, we're afraid. That's a human reaction. Being fearful of loss of your life, of possessions, of time, of love, of relationships. When you get in a storm, it reminds you of your humanity. The storm reinforces your humanity, how frail we are. So it reinforces for us our humanity. And so we can't run away from those things. But just remember that there is no opportunity without opposition. So there's going to be challenge, there's going to be controversy. But when storms come in your life, it is a time that you need equanimity. What is equanimity? I thought somebody would ask. That's what I brought a definition. Equanimity is mental calmness. It is composure. It is evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. Equanimity. And that's what you need in a storm is equanimity, mental calmness. You need composure. You cannot get in a storm and freak out. When you lose your mental calmness and composure, you can't think, you can only react. You need mental composure. You need calmness. You need evenness of temper to be able to know what to do when you get in a storm, because if you lose equanimity, it is like losing your mental equilibrium. You cannot function. You need equanimity in a storm. You need to calm down in a storm. Every time I've been on a plane, and you know, sometimes we hit these dead air pockets and the plane will suddenly drop so many feet instantly, and I can't tell you the number of times that I've had total strangers just reach over and just grab my hand. I'm like, excuse me, dude. I didn't know that we knew each other like that. And you know, I don't know why, but I just, you know, I love roller coasters, the ones that go upside down and, you know, all of this. And I love the feeling. And so I become exhilarated when I'm on an airplane and we experience turbulence. I'm like, now the ride is getting good. Oh, yes. So I actually enjoy it. When other people are panicking, I come alive. But there is a calmness. My equanimity is outstanding, and people somehow are able to feel my mental calmness, my temperance. In the midst of that, I'm very, very calm in turbulence on an airplane. And it's just because I'm confident in the one who has told me, let's go to the other side. I'm confident that I'm going to get to the other side. I am. So there's not a fear that I'm getting ready to lose my life. I'm like, Lord, my will is submitted to you. I'm submitted to doing your will, and you're the one who told me to come over here. You told me to go to the other side. I'm confident I'm riding on his word, not on the plane, not on the skill of the pilot. I'm riding on his word. So they somehow pick up my equanimity, and they just grab onto it. One lady she was just holding on to me, and she realized that about 5 minutes after the turbulence, I mean, I looked at her, you know, I'm like, are we going together? What? I'm married. She was a nervous wreck though, but she drew strength from my calm. From my calm. You'll be surprised at what your equanimity can do. But equanimity is not merely based on what you know, but who you know, and it is the realization that God is with you. It is the realization that God's with you, even while you're having a storm. Don't assume that the storm means that God has abandoned you. Remember, Jesus was in the ship with them. A storm is very chaotic, but our minds are orderly. Some of us. Our minds should be orderly. Our mind should be orderly. I mean, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, New Living Translation says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline." He's given us an ordered, disciplined mind. Of control, self-control, that's order, an orderly mind. He's given us an orderly mind. He has given us an orderly mind. We have the ability to bring order out of chaos. We have the ability to bring order out of chaos. That's what an orderly mind does. It brings order out of chaos. You have a leader that has an orderly mind. They can come in and things are all awry. This person is doing that. This person is doing this. But an orderly mind can get a panoramic view of everything that is going on. It is structured and it knows how to pick up and say, all right, listen, we've got too many chiefs and not enough Indians here. We need to get this A, B, C, D, and they've got categorized. Okay, I want you to be in charge of marketing situations here. I want you to get the accounting stuff over here. You're going to be in charge, of our security. And you've got all of these things. And so an ordered mind comes into a chaotic situation, surveys the land, and then creates order out of chaos. Where did we get that from? We got it from Elohim, God. Elohim means creator. God who came when the earth was in chaos. In the beginning, there was darkness, chaos in the earth. The original text says chaos. The earth was without order. It was without form and void. It was chaotic. And then the Spirit of God moved on the face of the deep. And God, as He spoke, He then began to bring order to chaos. And because we are made in the image of Elohim, Creator God, we have the capacity to bring order out of chaos. Storms are chaotic. They pull on the Elohim on the inside to create order out of the chaos. Here's the thing that we realize. The righteous, we don't wither in the storm, we weather the storm. We weather the storm. We are called to weather the storm. And so a windstorm arose during the time of Jesus, and it began to fill the boat with water. Have you ever stopped to realize that the storm only brings to you the stuff that's already in you? Now, notice wind and water. God blew into man. Wind, pneuma. He blew spirit, wind, same wind. And what are we made of primarily? Water. The storm is not doing nothing but throwing at you stuff that you're already made out of, that has become ordered in you. And now the disorderly stuff that's in the storm, it is throwing disorder, chaos to you that you've already dealt with and have managed to bring under order. So God says, I'm going to throw at you the very stuff that you're made of. And I want you to make order out of it. I made order out of it. I want you to make order out of it. And so this is a part of the treasure that is in the storm. It's part of the treasure. It's part of our God identity. You see, when the enemy threw a chaotic storm at Jesus, He turned it into a lesson and a testimony. Jesus turned it into a lesson and a testimony when the enemy threw a chaotic storm at Jesus. And this is why I say to you, don't let your condition be your conclusion. Don't let your condition be your conclusion. You know why I say that? Because you have the power to adapt. You have the power to bless. You have the power to change. You have the power to choose. You have the power to create. When you create, you have the ability, to design, to redesign, to organize. You have the power to learn, the power to grow. You have the power to respond. That's the power that you possess, power that you possess. Now, have you ever wondered how Jesus in the middle of a storm could be right in the middle of the storm, a severe storm, and then be fast asleep while everybody else was scared to death for their life? The reason is very simple. Jesus could sleep in the storm because there was no storm in Him. When you treat people right, listen to me. When you treat people right, that's equity. You don't have peace without equity. You can't treat people any kind of way and think that you can have peace. When you treat people right, You can have peace even amid a storm. Jesus could sleep while he was in a storm because he had no storm in him. Because Jesus always treated people right. He always treated people right. You get in a storm and you start feeling a certain way. Let me say this to you. How you feel is determined by what you're focusing on. How you feel is determined by what you're focusing on. If you are focusing on everything negative that's happening in your life and who's treating you bad and what's going wrong in the world and what's happening in the political arena, if you start thinking about certain things, you're going to start feeling down and discouraged and disappointed and fearful and anxious and all of these kind of things. How you feel is a direct result of what you are focusing on. If you're in a marriage and if you are always focusing on your spouse's shortcomings, every peculiarity about their personality, you will start losing esteem for them in your eyes if you focus on nothing but the negative stuff. If you start focusing on every part of them, you know, there's some bad in the best of us, and there's some good in the worst of us. And if you focus on the good, it will determine how you will feel. How you feel is determined by what you focus on. Dealing with a person, dealing with an organization, how you feel is determined by what you focus on. If you don't like the company that you're working for, it's based on what you're focusing on. You're focusing on what they don't provide instead of what they do. You're focusing on what you feel like they ought to be doing. And so however you feel, it is the result of what you are focusing on. Jesus was in the same storm that everybody else was in. But his focus was not on the storm. Their focus was on the storm. Jesus' focus was in La La Land. And he had peace because of where he was focusing or where he was not focusing. He had peace amid the storm and was able to sleep while everybody else was in an uproar. And so it depends on where you are looking, what you're focusing on as the experience that you're going to get. And so that's why they wondered where Jesus was amid the storm. They always wondered, you know, where's Jesus? They were in a storm. Now they said, where's Jesus? Jesus is where we left him. He's where they left him. I love something that Rabbi Zacharias says. He says, I think the reason that we sometimes have the false sense that God is so far away is because that is where we have put him. We have kept him at a distance, and then when we are in need and call on him in prayer, we wonder where he is. He is exactly where we left him. He's exactly where we left him. And let me just say this to you. Don't let the storm of what comes out of other people's mouth against your destiny put a storm in you. Don't let what comes out of other people's mouth against your destiny put a storm in you. What do I mean by that? You know, had there been other people who imbibed the words that were spoken to them, had they imbibed those words, it would have put a storm in them and they never would have been able to achieve. Albert Einstein, he was not able to speak until he was 4 years old, and his teacher said that he would never amount to anything. Thank God he didn't let that become a storm in him. Michael Jordan, after being cut from his high school basketball team, he went home, locked himself in his room and cried. But thank God that he didn't let that become a storm in him. Walt Disney, he was fired from the newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original ideas. Steve Jobs, at age 30, he was left devastated and depressed after being unceremoniously removed from the company which he started. Oprah Winfrey, she was demoted from her job as a news anchor because she wasn't fit for television. The Beatles, rejected by Decca Records, recording studios, said that we don't like their sound. They have no future in show business. Isn't it amazing what trouble you can get in if you let the words that come out of other people's mouth create a storm in you? But here's what I want you to see. Storms, see, there's treasure in the storms. Storms unearth treasure. Storms unearth treasure. They unearth treasure. Sometimes the storm has to blow something away for you to discover what you've got. There's a Sophie aphorism that says that when the heart weeps for what it has lost, the soul laughs for what it has found. The heart weeps for what it has lost, the soul laughs for what it has found. The storms unearth treasure. They unearth treasure. Storms blow some things from you. Storms blow some things to you. And then storms blow some things through you that you didn't even know that you had in you. Storms. You go through a storm and you discover stuff that you didn't even know that you had in you. And you know what you'll discover? That everybody who left couldn't stay, and those who stayed couldn't leave. So right now, you have exactly what you need in order to get the job done in your life. You ought to rest assured of that. Because in the essence, sometimes a storm is simply to get you back to the simple life again, where the things that are really important can be clearly seen. It's sometimes just to help us to get back to the simple life again. The storm will blow away some stuff that you didn't need to begin with. And it'll make you, when you go through a storm and it knocks your power out. If your gas has to be turned off, you go through a storm. If you ever go through a storm and your water gets polluted and you don't even know how to appreciate simple things like running water, being able to take a hot shower. You don't even appreciate the first bite of a meal when you're really hungry, or a tight hug, or crawling into the bed after a long, long day, or waking up in the morning and actually feeling like you've had enough sleep, or having just a genuine conversation with somebody without technology interrupting. Sometimes the storm is designed to get us back to the simple life of the things that really matter. You know what I discovered? That even though the storm will sometimes knock out your electricity, those of us who know Jesus Christ, though we may be without electricity, we are never without power. Because prayer is the world's greatest wireless connection. Storms reconnect us to prayer. Storms reconnect us to prayer. And may I just remind you of this. There are times that you may not even know what's going on in your life and why things are going on. A man got up one morning and went early to the hospital to have stitches removed from his thumb, and he was there at 8 o'clock. And they said the doctor wasn't in yet and wouldn't be able to get it until 9. And he says, no, I've got to be out of here by 9 o'clock. And a nurse that was on duty came and unwrapped his thing, and she went there to take the stitches out and to then redress his wound. And she said, sir, why is it that you need to leave so quickly? She knew that he wasn't going to be able to be serviced in an hour. And he says, I've got breakfast scheduled with my wife at the nursing home at 9 o'clock. I must be there. And she began to ask some other questions about it, and she said, my wife, she's got Alzheimer's. He says, she doesn't know who I am and hasn't known who I am in 5 years. And the nurse asked, she said, why then would you rush to try to be on time to have breakfast with a woman who doesn't even know who you are? And he said, it's because I know who she is. And you know what this is to essentially say to us? Sometimes you'll grow through storms in life that you never prepared for mentally and emotionally. And you can't stop the storms many times from coming when the storm does come, sometimes the goal is not merely to survive the storm. Sometimes the goal is to simply learn to dance in the rain. Don't let a storm stop you. Learn to dance in the rain. You got to realize that life is designed to be lived. It's a song, and a song is not a song until you sing it. Life is a bell, and a bell is not a bell until you ring it. Love is in your heart, but love is not love until you give it away. There's something that you have to just learn amid the storm while the power is out and everything is in darkness. Have a picnic. Get up and dance in the rain and make the best out of the situation. Don't let a storm ruin your day, because Jesus comes into the storm with you. He's with you in the midst of troubling things that could happen to you. He's right in the midst with you. He is in the midst. Bow your heads for just a moment. If you're in this place today, you don't know Jesus and the pardon of your sin, but you really want to know him. Some of you are going through a terrible storm, and you may even be wondering, God, why is this happening to me? Why? Why am I dealing with this? I'm hurting so badly. Lord, carest thou not that we perish? Are you not even concerned, God, about what's happening to me? Don't you see me, Jesus? I'm having a hard time. If you are real. Some of you put a challenge out to him because you're hurting in your life. Not only is he Lord of the storm, but he's Lord in the storm. And even when he doesn't stop the storm, he's with you in the storm. There's something that needs to be awakened in you. There's a treasure in the storm for you, because no storm will leave you the same. When you become a storm survivor, there's a different perspective that you have on life. Anybody who has gone through cancer and is a storm survivor of that cancer, your life is no longer the same. You're not the same person who came out of being able to survive cancer as before you were ever diagnosed. You're not the same person. You are not the same person.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Join us again next time for Power for Living, where revelation is power. Power for living.